I'm excited. Today we're finally gonna make some cuts. But before we do that, I need to rearrange my shop a little bit so we can get the laser over closer to my outlets to plug everything in. And then we need to hook up the chiller, and then we're gonna use the machine to cut out the lower panels for the enclosure. So let's go. See how heavy these are. Oh, not too bad if I move them one or two at a time. So I had bought that 4x8 sheet of coroplast to make the roof that I ended up scrapping. Instead of letting it go to waste, I decided I quickly cut up some panels here and taped them to the machine to make a temporary enclosure while we cut up these panels out of 14 gauge steel. Hopefully contain some of the dust and fumes while we make these cuts. I even cut a hole and taped my 6-inch takeoff here so I can hook up my exhaust. Okay, so before we do any cutting, I need to hook up the chiller still. Before I can run the machine with all the components, I need to get it over here into this position so that I can hook it up to my outlets up there on the ceiling. So that means it's time to retire this machine. I'm not sure what I'm gonna do with it. I might put it up for sale here locally in the Chicago suburbs, see if anybody's interested in buying it for cost. Or I also might just break it down and use the components. I'm thinking I'm gonna build a dedicated tube cutting machine so I could reuse some of the components. Anyways, I also think I need to get my CNC router. I think I'm going to turn it around backwards so that this Mazzo controller screen here isn't interfering with the monitor and keyboard of the laser cutter. So I need to do some rearranging. All right, I think it's gonna go something like this for right now. Man, having this clear acrylic enclosure on the top makes my workshop feel so much larger. Let's go ahead and get the exhaust attached here. Let's get the chiller over here in place. Go somewhere over here like this, right between the two machines. I've been moving over a few things off my old machine. I put this bracket here to hold the hand pendant, my magnet on a stick and scraper. Got my clamps and stuff. I'm gonna make this a door right here so I can keep some consumables and clamps and stuff down in here. And I've also moved over the light bar. I'll get that wired up here on this machine. Let's get the hoses hooked up to the chiller. All right, let me route this through there and we'll get it hooked up to the laser source. I decided to run all the hoses out the other side of the machine. It'd be a little cleaner. And you can see I've zip tied all the hoses here, so there's one nice continuous line to the chiller. I'll get a split loom to cover that up later. So let's get some coolant in here and check for leaks. Got some antifreeze and some distilled water to add in here. Actually, I don't even think I need the funnel. We're at the full line, so I'll stop, but once some of the water gets into the hoses, it'll probably drop a little and I'll add a little more fluid. Let's plug it in and check for leaks. All right, that looks all good. Check down here by the laser head, or laser source. That looks dry. Okay, cool. I don't see any leaks. I'm ready to do my first test cut. I've got a 10mm circle and then a 20mm square. Got some 14 gauge steel in there. Chiller's running. The oxygen line hooked up. Let me turn on the exhaust. Put on my safety glasses. Let's see what we got here. like I need to make an adjustment to my gas settings. Alright, I've increased the gas pressure a little bit. Let's try it. That one was pretty good, but I went ahead and did a handful more of test cuts and tweaked parameters slightly until I was really happy with the result. Alright, this is what I'm going to go with. There's almost no slag on it. Let's try to cut out some panels. I've removed a bunch of the bars here since I'm going to have to cut through them. That way I don't damage as many. I bought 2 foot by 3 foot sheets of 14 gauge steel. I think it'll just fit in here. Oh yeah, that's like the perfect size for this machine. Okay, I've got a file set up for the 2 back panels. So I think there's nothing left to do. Let's run it and see what happens. For those of you seeing fiber laser cutting for the first time, let me explain what it's doing. There's 2 operations to each cut. There's a piercing operation, which punches a hole through the material, and then it starts the cut in that hole. So you can see here that the machine almost appears to be just pausing before it starts every cut. I have the piercing operation actually way longer than it needs to be. It's almost immediately punching through the material. So after that, it appears just to be pausing, but really it's shooting the laser down there for, like, I don't know if it's 500 milliseconds or something. So later on, I shorten that up after I realize it's not necessary. These cut out beautifully. There's literally no slag. Edge finish is really good. Let's just check and make sure they're on dimension here. So these should be 338.7 millimeters wide. And that looks spot on. They should be 520 millimeters long. Also looks spot on. Awesome, let's do a test fit and see if they work, and then if they do, we'll cut out some more. I have my holes here to mount the 3-stage filter for the compressed air. Okay, those fit really well. I'm going to clean all these up and paint them black. But for now, I'm just going to dry fit everything and make sure everything fits before I go through that process. So let's cut out some more panels. here are all the panels we just cut out for the front of the machine. It's actually laid up upside down. These are going to be the two access doors that will open like this to retrieve parts. And the lower one's also going to have a door. That's just going to be to store some consumables and stuff. And on this one here, you can see I have the cutout for the laser source controls and my e-stop. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get all these installed to test fit them, and we'll see how they work. Everything looks good. I've still got to figure out, I'll probably add some magnetic latches here to keep all the doors shut. But yeah, we can have access to either side. And down here, I'll have storage for my laser nozzles and consumables and such. And yeah, I got the e-stop mounted, and I can bolt this to the laser source once everything's painted. So cool. Let's keep going and let's cut out the sides. Also, having all these metal panels tying together the frame should add a little more rigidity to the structure, so that's an added bonus. We've just cut out all the panels for the left side of the enclosure. So yeah, we're almost done. Let's cut out the right side. Here you can really see the advantage of having an autofocus head. You can see the dial changing the focus every time it goes between cutting and piercing. All the side panels are cut out now. That's all for the right side, and this is all for the left side. And those are some spacers for the front door hinges. So yeah, wow, I cut all these out today and the machine worked awesome. I don't think I'm gonna test fit these. I'll take some measurements and make sure that they're on dimension. And then I'm gonna start getting all these cleaned up and painted, and installed on the machine. I quickly scrape off any spatter from the piercing, and also sometimes there was a bit of slag where it cut across the aluminum rails. Then I wipe clean with mineral spirits. Everything's cleaned off now. I think I'll give it one quick wipe down before I paint. I get my 6-inch takeoff for the exhaust attached. Okay, one side done. I still need to go around and snug down all the screws. I just loosely tightened them to see how the fit of everything was going to go together. And it went together surprisingly well. So yeah, awesome. Let's install the other side and then we can paint the front and back panels. Alright, I didn't account for the monitor mount right here. I'm going to cut a little notch, it looks like. So we'll save that one for later. For everybody else, I've updated the 3D model. In my case, I just used an angle grinder to cut that out and drilled a new hole. Let's get this installed. All right, this side's also done. I've added a couple of screen filters. They're magnetic and they're stuck to the inside of those two holes. I've removed the front and back panels and got them all cleaned up. So let's paint. The back's all done. That looks much better. I got the 3-stage filter installed for the compressed air line. Let's do the front. I have some magnetic latches that I need to install for the doors, and I need to 3D print some mounts for them to finish this up. I come up with a quick mount for the latches in Fusion. Got my 3D printed mount here with some drop-in T-nuts. My magnetic latch. Mount right to that. Cool, just one more on the bottom. All right, this one's done too. Now, after seeing all these panels painted black, I'm almost wishing I would have used black extrusion for everything. That could have looked really cool, and black hardware. The machine seems to be performing well so far. I'm gonna wrap up this series in the next video, and we'll do some more test cuts of thicker and thinner material to see how it performs. And then I want to go over file prep of how I get the files from Fusion and import it into the software to set up the laser cut files. And then I want to take a look at the goals we set out to achieve, how we did, and the final specs of the machine, and release my building materials and the 3D files and everything for you guys. I also wanted to mention, if you want to learn more about me and how I came to doing these fiber laser cutter projects and more about Skyfire, we recorded an interview a couple weeks ago. I'll put the link below if you want to check that out. Thank you to all my Patreon supporters for making this project happen. Thank you guys.